ready.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, and then share.
All right. Social Class in Psychology by Cody, Jesohaya, and Channing. Social class is a core cultural identity alongside race and gender, but it's often overlooked in therapy and research. It's important to understand a client's social class to be able to empathize with their lived experience. The goal is to move beyond seeing social class as just income and understand it as a worldview that affects client-therapist dynamics and how social class affects how a client interacts with their therapist and how therapists will perceive and interact with their clients. There's three core concepts that we need to understand social class. The first is objective social class, which is the external measurable indicators like parental income, education, and occupation. Subjective social class, which is personal perception of one's rank on the social class ladder. And this is a powerful psychological aspect of social class. And classism, which is the marginalization and discrimination based on perceived social and economic standing. And those three concepts all come together and affect people's attitudes towards seeking help for their mental health. So lower income and education will oftentimes lead to lower subjective social class, feeling lower on the social class ladder, which leads to more frequent experiences of discrimination, which in return can lead to increased perception of stigma from the public and their social networks, with a end result of more negative attitudes towards seeking help for their mental health or avoidance altogether. Okay, there can be a double dose of marginalization, which cause avoidance of seeking help, which is classism, the discrimination they face on an everyday basis, and the stigma of counseling, needing help with their mental health will also cause them to avoid getting therapy. Impact number three is the mistrust of the counseling system. So the mental health system is often built on middle class norms, which can feel alienating to lower income clients. Traditional therapy often focuses on introspection, specific communication styles, and even the concept of leisure time. And for some people from different class backgrounds, this can feel alienating and confusing. Also, if they've faced discriminations in certain systems like welfare, housing, or employment, they also might mistrust the mental health system. And all these variables all come together and oftentimes create a ripple effect of consequences, which are the barrier to access, negative attitudes towards seeking mental health may cause avoidance and they don't get the help they need, or the erosion of trust. Mistrust can hinder the therapeutic alliance and lead to unsuccessful outcomes. Internalized shame and stigma can block engagement in therapy and the ability to be vulnerable. And re-traumatization, the therapy room can be unintentionally become another site of class-based discrimination. I'm going to hand it over to Channing, and she'll talk to you about the clinical aspects.
Perfect. So I have social class in clinical psychology. Social class involves many factors, some that are widely known, some that are not. Those are education, income, career or occupation, health outcomes, power, cultural background, stress levels, etc. Social class influences influences clients is access to resources and supports. Some barriers could be they might not have reliable transportation, internet or reliable internet, a smartphone or any phone at all, and they could be in a fiscal bind. Clients' education opportunities, they may not have reliable transportation. Again, a good example of that. Or it could be too expensive. Truancy could become from that. And then also power imbalances if they have issues or struggles with authoritative figures. This could influence the client's stress level, trying to balance life, dependents, children, money, ensuring their safety, etc. Many have an unstable home life. Social class influences clients' health outcomes. They have limited time to prioritize their physical and mental health. Healthcare is expensive in all aspects. They typically prioritize their children first. Affordable food is generally not nutritionally balanced, and then that could put them in a food insecurity. These factors and influences can create an imbalance. Therapists and clinicians often come from a higher SES background than their clients, often but not always, and this can create a class-based power imbalance. Class, stigma, and discrimination. So we have classism, which is a prejudice against or in favor of people belonging to a particular social class. This can affect the therapist due to bias, resulting in microaggressions as well as predetermined thoughts about one's motivation and values. Some misconceptions can be the psychologist or the therapist can think that their client might be unmotivated or lazy because they maybe not show up to an appointment, but they could also have external barriers challenging them. Stigma, clients and individuals from lower SES may internalize their hardships, inferiority, or shame. Individuals who need these services but are reluctant to because of their upbringing, beliefs, or shame. For an example, a blue-collar, hardworking man brought up to believe that the man is the sole provider of the family is taught to internalize emotion. We hear often that boys don't cry or are taught to not show their emotion, but those are a specific group or a specific population of individuals who need to be served, but they can be reluctant to receiving those services. So for my case study, I found the Therapeutic Alliance in Social Class by Trott and Reeves. This case study is conducted by Trott and Reeves, and it took a further look at therapists as clients. So flipping them, putting them in their shoes, changing the perspective. And this was to further examine how social class differences directly affect therapy. The method that they used, the 45 participants completed questionnaires via online survey. These were returned. Per online survey, there were 30 middle class and 15 working class qualified and practicing therapists playing the role of the client in this study. And then the implications for practice, the therapist's lack of awareness of social class was shown to lead to inadvertent oppressive and or classist behavior. For a client to take full benefit from therapy, therapists must recognize the importance of social class and classism and their impact among therapeutic relationships and be prepared to attend these dynamics when appropriate. So the findings from this study, when the social class differences were acknowledged, brought light to and understood, the therapeutic alliance was strengthened on both ends from the client and the therapist. When the social class differences were ignored, the clients or therapist, for this example, felt misunderstood, ignored, and vulnerable. This gave insights to how clients really feel when social class negatively affects their therapeutic experience. This gave them a good opportunity to step into the client's shoes, see a different perspective, and in a way it can be eye-opening to them and help them be more successful down the line in their own practice. This study highlighted the importance of several self-evaluation and class consciousness, as well as continuous reflection. The three majorly affected areas by social class were the openness, empathy, and mutual understanding. Social class barriers in therapy. The first one I have listed is communication differences. So this can just be a difference between the communication or first language of both the client and the practitioner. Conceptualization of issues at hand, undermining, and the negligence to tailor services to specific client. Every client is different, so the communication is gonna look different between each of those individuals. Second one I have listed is power imbalance. The therapist can be seen or viewed as an authoritative figure due to their professional expertise, and clients tend to be vulnerable during this time. The client may feel as if they have little to no control of their situation. The client may be reserved about their challenges due to fear of being judged or ridiculed by the therapist if they know that they are from a higher SES. So that might lead to them withdrawing some information or holding back some information. Um, and then the third one I have listed is accessibility issues. Clients and individuals who come from a lower SES might struggle to attain supports, aids, and benefits on their own due to financial strain. Therapy is expensive. Another one is time barriers. They could be juggling multiple jobs or dependents. And the third one I have listed is the lack of knowledge about supports. So not knowing what is out there or programs not reaching those specific populations. These programs are highly advertised in mental health facilities, counseling clinics, and their therapist offices. But often, if this population is reluctant to go in, then they miss out on that and those opportunities. So, some common misconceptions. According to an article from the APA, The Eliminating Class Bias, psychologists and clinicians may assume that most poor people do not work. Psychologists have admitted to stereotyping poor people as violent, lazy, and dirty, and psychologists and clinicians have disregarded the fact that a no-show for an appointment may simply have been because of a client's lack of transportation, lack of childcare, or financial bind. So oftentimes they're jumping to conclusions rather than seeing the external challenges that these clients are dealing with firsthand, and that can come from the social biases there, social class biases. And then I do have a chart over here showing some mental health myths. And then helpful practices for psychologists moving forward, self-reflection and developing class awareness, know your personal class background, study and recognize how your SES positioning could create a blind spot or a bias when facing a client who differs from you. Again, this will be situational. Each client is different. So it'd be helpful to assess each situation that you're going into. Use accessible and respectful language. Meet the client where they are. Do not speak in terms over their heads and do not speak to them like they're a child. Use communication accommodation. So therapists, you're typically using more of an educational terms. It'd be easy to kind of slow that down, make sure that you're conveying the information in an accessible way for them, and don't leave them leaving the session with more questions. Continue education and advocate for accessibility and equity. Challenge the systemic barriers. You could offer a sliding scale fee at your practice, telehealth, or community resources and outreach, meeting the clients where they are rather than having them come to you, because some of those barriers that they face can put a hinder in that road.
Okay, so mine was focused on understanding how social class, socioeconomic status impacts school psychologists. School dilemmas. As counselors and school psychologists continue to flourish through the 21st century, U.S. society and its schools continue to evolve rapidly, mirroring vast demographic, cultural, and socioeconomic changes. Poverty remains a critical factor affecting the academic and social emotional outcomes in the U.S. These trends emphasize the need for culturally responsive and equity-driven school psychology practices. 18% of children live below federal poverty level, affecting learning and social emotional development. Poverty levels continue to rise in the US. Increasingly diverse student bodies remains a critical factor affecting academic and social emotional outcomes. These trends emphasize the need for culturally responsive and equity-driven school psychology practices. Systemic inclusion model proposed for school counselors is based on principles of direct services, include in small group counseling, large group guidance, work, and collaboration with classroom teachers. I did add a U.S. academic enrollment census. According to the U.S. Census, the diversity index is evident that the population under 18 exhibited higher levels of racial and ethnic diversity than the total population and adult population. In contrast, the proportion of Hispanic students rose from 6% to 19%, accounting for half of the nation's population growth between 2004 and 2005. The number of children who speak a language other than English at home has doubled between 1979 and 2004, climbing from 3.8 million to 9.9 million. Evolution of counselor roles. Over the past years, these roles have changed and school counselors expanded from academic guidance to a mental health movement. School counselors are focused on responding to the personal, social aspects of students and their families in the form of remedial services. This movement encouraged schools counselors to consider the unique development circumstances their diverse students face in reaching quality education. Cultural contradictions may be found in academic situations in which independent and competitive forms of learning and achievement are emphasized. Social class inequality. The idea that schools are an area in which social class inequalities are reinforced may initially be shocking, given that schools are supposed to be excellent and accepting environments in which achievement is shaped by ability and effort rather than by any advantage conferred by classrooms. Middle class norms often interplay values in shaping academic success to the extent that this helps middle class children to outperform their working class peers. Belief that such performance differences are due to differences in ability and or effort will serve to explain a legitimate unequal performance. Advocates. School counselors are able to educate faculty and offer professional development opportunities, engage in activities with students, empower stakeholder families, community members, and all students. Advocacy for marginalized groups create positive systemic change. When counselors are recognized as leaders and experts of interpreting the social context of achievement to colleagues, it becomes easier for them to advocate for marginalized students, voice their professional opinion in formal meetings, and purports implement germane interventions for students in need. According to the ASCA, school counselors advocate for the equal rights of educational access. All students, regardless on race, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, language, immigration status, socioeconomic status, special education, or mental health status. Disparities in healthcare and social class are supported. Grants for public schools to treat traumas and other mental illnesses demonstrate to be highly effective on the whole. There's a substantial need. There is a substantial need for more aware grants on school-based capacities for meeting children's mental health needs, on students' health and education outcomes, interventions, or treatments, improve one or more aspects of mental health and social emotional functioning, the sample interventions delivered in school settings. Therefore, students from all social class and age groups, regardless of their systemic backgrounds, can achieve success when provided with equitable opportunities and support.
Perfect. Then we have our 3 reference pages.